So Scott, didn't you tell us as directors to get off the video unless we're speaking?
It's up to you if you want to be on the video while you're speaking or not. Well, I prefer that when you're speaking, you do have your video on. If
Right.
you're not speaking, then you can take your video off. It'd probably be best if we had the council with all their video on,
Yes.
so
Okay.
the public knows that you're at the meeting. But I
Okay.
don't know if every department head needs to. I'm going to keep my camera on the whole time, but not necessarily everybody needs to do that. Okay, I think we're, okay. So we're streaming right now. Mayor, if you want to start the meeting.
Okay.
We can get going.
All right. I'd like to call the order of the Pleasant Grove City Council work session on this March the 31st, 2020 at 5 o'clock. And I would like everyone of the council to, I'll do a roll call here. So Kathy has this down. Councilmember Anderson, are you present?
Yes.
Councilmember Bullock.
Yes.
Councilmember Jensen.
Yes.
Councilmember Lamone.
Yes.
And Councilmember Williams.
Yes.
Okay, we're all signed in and present. So we'll now proceed with our work session today. And we'll turn the time over to you then, Scott.
Okay, I appreciate everybody joining. This is unique. We might have a couple bugs as we go. We'll try our best to make sure everybody can see the information and we can have the discussion. I'm going to share my screen with a document that's going to start with our current, that we're going to use to talk about our budget situation. Okay, did that document pull up?
Yes.
Yep.
Can I just turn
Okay.
the video off and then it's just showing me?
Okay. All right, so this is kind of a narrative that I've typed up. It's about 3 pages. There's some numbers in here, and as we talk numbers, Denise has provided a couple other supplemental materials, which I'll pull up as we get going. But I'm just going to read through this, and then we can, we can maybe have questions as we go. It just depends. Some of the questions might be answered further into this, but in essence, today is going to be a download of information for the City Council to consider. So we'll continue our budget discussions on April 14th. The time today is for us to share what we have as staff and allow you to ask questions or ask what other information you'd like for us to research in preparation of April 14th. The purpose of this work session is not to start solving the problems or solving issues in regards to budget. It's really for you to get an idea of where Denise and I are at as we look at this, and for you to take it in, and then we can have other discussions as we go, and then we'll come back on the 14th and really have further discussions. So a few things for us to understand as we start making these decisions. I want to define some things, and some of this might be a review for people, but I want to make sure that as we have these discussions that you're understanding when we use certain terms. I'd like to start first of all by saying, as Denise and I have looked at this, our number one goal is to preserve levels of service and to preserve jobs within the city. Some services right now are being more impacted than others, particularly recreation and library, because right now they're not fully open. And because of that, we're going to have some discussions here a little bit later about what that means, particularly for some of those employees. But when I say we're preserving jobs, we're going to do our best to kind of keep everybody employed. But there will be some circumstances in the short term because of the closure of library and rec center that could affect certain individuals. Also, as we are putting these budget numbers together, we're being conservative. We're not worst case scenario, but we are being conservative because we want to make sure we have some leeway because right now we're kind of shooting in the dark. We have a general when we do our budgeting, we generally underestimate our revenues and we underspend our expenditures. And these principles will actually save us on our budget for this current year because how we rolled into our budget for fiscal year 20. But I want you to understand that as you see numbers today, we are doing our best to estimate, but because of really the unknown and the unprecedented nature of really shutting down a state and a country for a month or two or three, the financial impact right now is not fully understood, and we won't understand that for a couple more months. I want to remind you of our sales tax distribution. Our sales tax, I'm sorry if you go down a little bit more, our general fund is $14 million of revenue in our general fund. 6 million of that is sales tax. So 41% of our general fund revenues are sales tax. Our second largest revenue generator is property tax, which is 3 million. Property tax is stable. That number won't change. It will change maybe a little bit if we have some future development, but generally speaking, that number will not go down. The sales tax is the one that is really volatile based on how much people spend when it comes to shopping and restaurants and those types of things. So when it comes to sales tax, half of our sales tax revenues are generated from point of sale in Pleasant Grove. So somebody comes in and shops in our community, that's where half of our sales tax revenues come from. The other half goes to a statewide pool, and then it's disseminated out to the individual cities based on population. So even if things were pretty good in Pleasant Grove, half of our sales tax is really dependent on what's going on in the whole state. And so we might think, hey, the grocery stores are doing well, we're going to be okay. But we have to remember car dealerships, entertainment, some of these things, restaurants, some of these things that are pretty decent sales tax generators statewide are down. So that's, we want to make sure you understand that. And then also, when we get our sales tax revenues, there's a 2-month lag. And so when we get our sales tax numbers for March, to see how much money was generated in the month of March, we'll get that number on June 1st. And so that's a little problematic as we're trying to predict how we're going to finish out this fiscal year, the next 3 months, because we're not even going to know the impact of March until June 1st. We won't know the impact of April until July 1st. Now, the March numbers are going to be 50-50. About half the month, we were going gangbusters, and then the other half, as we've all seen, have really dropped. The month of April, we're assuming is going to be a pretty bad month because really the social distancing and all the procedures that are in place look like they're going to extend through the month of April. And then May and June are going to all depend on how much we're going to open back up the economy as we kind of get over the hump on this stuff. And so we are anticipating that our sales tax revenues will see a sharp drop really for the last 3 months, for April, May, and June, and even parts of March. And how much is what we don't know. I also want to talk about our general fund balance, which is this is our reserve account. This is our savings. Our general fund balance, we're required by law to have between 5% and 25% of our current revenues in our general fund balance. So because of that, we can't have too much in there and we can't have too little. Currently, we sit at about 17% of revenues. We have about $2.3 million in our general fund balance. Right now, that money is unallocated. Right now, that money is our emergency money if we need to use it, but we do also have to consider it as one-time money. This is not money that replenishes every year, and so to use it for operations gets a little bit tricky, and we'll talk about that in a minute.
Scott, you broke up on the percentage. Was that 17% we have?
17% is where we're currently at.
Okay, great, thank you.
And that's a pretty good number for us. I feel good about our reserves. Does somebody else have a question?
Hey, Scott.
Yeah.
That
14 million is just from 2019 actuals. So that could change as our revenue goes down, just a reminder of
Okay.
that. So just a,
Yeah, I am using kind of general numbers here. I'm not using the exact numbers because part of this is I just want to have an understanding that this is roughly what we have to work with. And so, yes, our revenues for fiscal year 2020 could very well go down and be less than 14 million. And all that means is that the number that we can carry, that we can max out at just goes down. And since we're not close to maxing out and we're not close to being near the minimum, that number doesn't matter as much for us, at least at this moment. Well, for fiscal year 20 budget, is everybody seeing that?
Yes.
Yes.
Our goal as staff, as we've looked at this, is to break even on our revenues over expenditures and not use any fund balance for fiscal year 20. Now, the reason this is possible is the first 8.5 months of this year have been pretty good. Our revenues have been strong. They've come in over our projections. And so because of that, in essence, we were building up additional revenues that we weren't necessarily planning on. Now, we've done this for every year. And so when we get to the end of our fiscal year, whatever revenues we have over expenditures is what we roll into our next year's capital. So last year that was 900,000. The year before that it was 1.4 million. I don't remember what it was the years before that, but it was a few $100,000. And so every year we've turned a surplus. This year, we don't think we're going to turn a surplus. If things would have stayed the same, we probably would have been $600,000 or $700,000 or $800,000 of money to roll into next year's capital. But because of the slowdown, we're anticipating that we're not going to see any. The good news is we don't think we're going to go in the hole, but we don't think we're going to have any additional monies, revenue over expenditure. Now, that's us taking a guess today. Once we get some sales tax numbers on June 1st for the month of March, that could change. And so really what we're asking right now for action items is Denise and I are meeting with each department head. We're looking at the expenditure side of their budget, and we're seeing what monies that they have not spent and trying to determine what they absolutely need to spend in the next 3 months or what can be held back. So we've met with Marty and we've met with Tyler, and we're meeting with the rest of everybody else the rest of this week, and we're going line by line in their budgets. And then we're asking them to come back to us and say, okay, in this budget item, there's $20,000 left. We only need to spend 10. That means we can save $10,000 here. So that's, we're asking them to just consider their needs and, just be careful on how they look at their expenditures moving forward. There are certain things that we will not spend money on because there's certain expenses we're not going to incur. Like in the legal budget, we're not paying for our indigent defense. We're not paying for those defendants that don't have attorneys. Normally we pay for that. But because court isn't really going, those are expenses that we're not going to expend. The flip side of that is there's court revenues now that we're not generating because our courts are really limited on what they're doing. So action item number 2 would be not schedule part-time employees in recreation or library once we don't have something for them to do. So in essence, if you look around, layoffs are happening everywhere, and furloughs and those types of things. For most of our services right now, we don't need to contemplate that. For rec and library, we're going to hit a wall. We're going to hit a point where there's just nothing else for the rec employees to do. And so we're going to need to, I don't know what the proper term is. I don't know if it's a furlough or if the idea is that they'll stay employed with us. We just won't be scheduling them. So that as soon as the rec center opens back up and our programs start again, we don't have to rehire them. We can just plug them back in and go. But there could be a few weeks there where there's not going to be any work for them to do.
Hey, Scott, question. So and maybe this is a question for Tyler, what are we currently having our rec employees do? Or, I know what our library is because I'm seeing that a little bit, but maybe Tyler can address, what is he currently having his staff do?
Go ahead, Tyler.
You hear me?
Yep, Ken.
Okay. So right when we shut down, we just went obviously right to the facility. We are cleaning. If you were to come into the rec, you would be able to see your face on the floor because it's shining and it looks great here. So we just really went heavy on cleaning every little bit of the rec center and basically thinking about when we usually close in August for our cleaning, what do we usually do then that we can do now? And so we fixed some equipment and just got everything to the best that we could. And so that's what they are currently doing right now. And we are coming to that wall. And so we will be asked shortly to follow what Scott says and just not be able to have work for people. And so we'll have to follow those guidelines of not having part-time.
Okay, well, thanks, Tyler. Thanks for taking the initiative to do what you can.
So we're in close communications right now, Tyler and I and Sherry and I. I mean, ideally, we keep people going the best we can, but it does become a cash issue for us eventually if we don't have any revenues coming in from the rec center, yet we have a bunch of people still working there. So we're going to work through those two departments individually and figure out what that looks like. And there'll be decisions made in the next week or two. Library probably has a little bit more going on than the rec because of the curbside. And if we choose to expand that, then we could keep people going. And then the story time. Now their hours might be cutting back because maybe they're not doing as much as they normally do. But for some people, they're still going to be able to keep going. We do have a handful of individuals that have chosen just to not work. The paycheck maybe isn't as needed for them. And so they're okay to just take time off and to be home with their family. And so we have some of those that, we're not paying and they're not here doing work for us.
Just one thing also about some of the benefits of furloughing as opposed to laying off is that they can still apply for unemployment as long as it's under the COVID unemployment, which won't affect our rate next year, but they can apply for unemployment benefits. So
yeah, and that's what I was going to say. I want to make sure that we look into the workforce services to make sure that if we do need to reduce their hours or stop production, that we allow the employees to take advantage of the incentives that have been taking place through the Utah state and national governments.
Absolutely, and so we're looking into those so that we can assist our employees that are in that situation. So we can let them know what their options are, because they can file for unemployment at that time, and that would be appropriate. They could go get another job if somebody was going to hire them temporarily, or they could just go get another job, period. I mean, we want to make sure that the options are available to them so that they can take care of their families as needed. It's just that we're going to reach a point where the city will have to quit providing that paycheck.
Right.
And so,
That's great. Understood. Thanks for your leadership there, Scott.
So we're working with individuals and with specific departments right now at this time. The third bullet item on our action items is that each new job opening we will take a hard look at before we fill. Now, with that being said, we have 2 police department openings right now, but our plans are to fill those. With what's going on, I don't think it makes sense for us to hold off on public safety. It feels like we're going to need everybody on the ground in regards to the situation. And part of this is most employees, well, pretty much all employees that we have, if we have somebody leave us, it does affect our level of service. We're not such a big city that if we have people gone that we just absorb it. So we'll evaluate those and see what it looks like. But chances are, for the most case, we'll probably need to open those up and continue to keep that service going. With an understanding, I think the job market, which is going to do a 180, pretty much, I think, where it was such a tight labor market a month ago, I think some of that stuff's going to loosen up. I think we're gonna, if we do need to recruit, I just don't think it's gonna be as tight. So, these things are unfortunate, but there are certain things that maybe work a little bit to our benefit as a city.
One thing, Scott, that to that end, in the financial markets, this is a false recession, and typically you have recessions based upon economy. This is a quote unquote recession based upon the effects of a virus, and as that turns around, the economy underneath it is strong. So I think while there will be a plethora of individuals wanting to get rehired, hopefully that won't last very long, right? We'll turn the economy and spin that up a little bit faster than a normal recession would return.
Well, and we're going to address that when we talk about fiscal year 21 budget, because what you're saying, Todd, is there's a lot of truth there, and part of it is really parsing exactly what those impacts are going to be. And so we'll talk about that in just a minute. But
that's great.
One thing on our fiscal year 2020, which I've already covered, is that we just won't know the full impact of sales tax reductions until September 1st, which is when we get our June receipts. And so, again, we're kind of flying blind a little bit in a sense that we don't know the impacts. And so we're just kind of bracing right now, making these reductions. We feel in fiscal year 2020, we're going to be break even, and then we'll get into 21 here in a minute. Just a couple notes. So all road projects for summer of 2020 are fully funded. So those projects are going to happen. In fact, we have a couple bid awards we're going to do today. One of them on a road project, one of them's going to be on a water project, but those projects are going to happen. And Marty,
is Marty on right now?
Yes.
Okay, so are we up and like when is the first road project starting, Marty?
Did Marty fall asleep?
He might not be on. He probably, maybe he went to visit.
Marty, unmute.
Sorry about that. They've got about 3 screens going here. So yes, with regards to that, we do have 2 projects that we're awarding tonight. One is the 1300 West project between Pleasant Grove Boulevard and 100 South. So that's a street related project. Next or tomorrow we have the 150 North project pre-bid meeting, which is from 1300 East to 1400 East, the water line and road reconstruction there. So those are 2 big projects that are happening, one this week and one will be on the 14th. And so those will move forward. We also have the 900 West and 2100 North project that that was added to Staker's project last year, 1100 North project. That project will be starting here in about a month and is planned to move forward as well. So
we feel
Thanks,
good
Marty.
about the streets and those projects. The fact that they're funded just means the money's in the bank, we can do them. So we're going to proceed. And a lot of those dollars are Class C monies anyway and protected. We can't really use them for anything else. The other note is we've all heard about the $2.2 million stimulus package. Our understanding through the Utah League is that the state of Utah will get about $1.5 billion from that. The question is the state now decides how much the counties and the cities are going to get of that $1.5 billion. And the state government was just informed whenever they passed the package. Was it Friday? I think Friday, the president finally signed it. So this has only been, they've had like 4 days. And so there's still a lot of unknowns in what the state is going to do with that money. And what we are doing on our end is we're tracking all expenses that are tied specifically to COVID-19 so that if there are federal funds available to us that we can qualify for them. Because generally speaking, we have to show that we have spent money on this. If we're not tracking that or don't have the receipts, then they could tell us, hey, you're not going to get this money because you can't prove to us that you've used it for this. So Denise has spreadsheet that she's keeping track of so that we can track these dollars. It would be nice. We just don't know what that is going to trickle down to us. So we have built none of that money into the budget at this moment. If we get any of that money, I'll be very happy. That's how I feel. And again, I don't know how the state, it's going to be up to the state how they're going to disseminate it. 1.5 billion is a lot of money, but you know, the state is going to see some budget issues too. They rely a lot on sales tax, just like we do. And so they're going to have their own set of issues financially. And so we're hoping that they do look out for us. And I know the mayor has been in contact with the county commissioners, with MAG. We're in contact with the Utah League of Cities and Towns. They're the ones that represent us at the state. They're the ones that are trying to figure out what the state's going to do with it. So we've got our eyes and our minds on that.
In regards to the furlough, how quickly do we need to, like, when will decisions be made regarding those employees and things like that?
I think for the rec center, probably in the next 2 days. For the library, because they have a little bit more going on, we have a little bit more time there. But I talked with Tyler and Sherry both extensively today, kind of lining out, okay, how much work is left? How many people really need to keep going? How many are okay? And same with the library, again, because the library has really the only thing the rec is doing is the fitness classes online. When it comes to kind of what the public is being involved in. Because once the cleaning's done, we're not allowing people into the rec anyway. Neon has created a list of jobs that are more parks related, so pulling weeds and painting curbs, that we have had some employees take advantage of that and do some of that. But I think we'll have decisions on the rec by the end of the week. And then library will have figured out probably in the next week or two. We have a little bit more time there.
Just one question. Is there any benefit to being quick to let them know about this so that they, like our benefits, would an unemployment benefit, would it be better to get in right now, or is it better to wait? I don't know.
I don't know the answer to that, but we're moving at a pace that is sooner rather than later. We're not dragging our feet on this.
Yeah.
What's in the best interest of the employee? If employees were really nervous about that, they could head out, they could file for unemployment tomorrow.
I know, and I think tomorrow is the date where this money is available.
Well, tomorrow is the date that the new rules start applying, but they still apply on April 2nd and on April 3rd.
Okay.
And so if somebody waits till then, I don't think it's detrimental to them as an individual.
Can I just chime in? You're right, Scott, in the fact that the rules go into effect tomorrow and they're in effect until December 31st of 2020. So as we move along, in case this lasts a little bit longer than we expect, or there's some other, lingering cases, some employee has some impact later on, they still have the opportunity to take advantage of this extra sick leave, paid sick leave, and paid extended FMLA leave. So I think there's no need to rush. We've already posted, Kyler's been on the ball, he's already posted the notices that are required to be posted by tomorrow, informing our employees of this new federal legislation. And then also we've been working on an internal policy. There are a couple of things in the federal legislation that give us some discretion on the local level. And so we're developing a policy unique to Pleasant Grove, implementing those federal mandates. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you, Tina.
Okay.
So for fiscal year 2020, these last 3 months, in a general sense, I feel good because the first 8.5 months were so good for us that I feel like we can get through this without having to use any reserves. I think that's a good place for us to be as a city. Now that tune could change on June 1st when we get our March sales tax numbers. But, right now we are accounting for at least a 50% drop in our sales tax revenues. But that's also accounting for a 50% drop in our sales tax revenues in May and June. And I don't know if it will be that drastic. And so April's going to be rough, very rough. We're hoping May and June, parts of the economy get opened back up so people at least can maybe go shop and go and eat out again and do some of these things that normally generate sales tax for us. Okay, shall we move to fiscal year 2021 budget? Okay, so this is the one that gets a little tricky because well, I'll read the questions that we've been contemplating. So every city's scrambling on trying to determine the future revenues for fiscal year 21. In fact, the Utah League has set up a kind of a task force to study this. They've asked me to be a part of that. There's probably about 20 of us on this task force. And we're going to start looking at what this means for cities for next year. So here's some of the factors that we're looking at that we don't have answers to, but all play an impact into our budget. When will we be able to gather again? Meaning shopping, restaurants, entertainment, and probably travel too. Will gathering be allowed in limited increments as things, I don't know, that's a bad worded sentence there. But in essence, when the gathering is allowed again, is it going to be in increments? Are they going to let us do groups of 50? And then maybe a month later, it's groups of 100. And so in some cases, some of the economy will open back up, but other parts of the economy might not open back up. And so that's a question that we don't know. Will the U.S. economy enter into, in essence, a nationwide recession? I think everybody's trying to get that figured out. And if we enter into recession, how long will that last? And that's a complete unknown. The Great Recession was about a 3-year drain on revenues on the city budget. I sure hope that this doesn't turn into a 3-year deal. I don't think it will turn into a 3-year deal, but that is unknown. How many people will end up unemployed? I mean, you probably have seen the numbers just in 2 weeks in March of, in essence, the country shutting down and Utah shutting down. The unemployment numbers went up drastically, and I think we're going to see more of that in April. Will building development be negatively impacted? This is one we'll probably have a better sense of in the next month or two. But are we going to see? I feel that commercial development, so retail and office, I could see really slowing down. The residential might actually stay, hopefully, fairly good. It's important that we as a city keep our community development department open so we can issue building permits. For every building permit we issue, that means somebody's working. And so there's a subdivision by my house, drove home for lunch, and there were workers building the house, and that was a good sight to see. So, and if building development goes down, that will have an impact on our development revenues. And then really how long before things get back to normal? And I should probably put normal in quotes because I don't think normal is going to be the same as it ever was. But, when are things going to swing back? And because of all those unknowns, we are just making estimations. And if you read the next line there, the paragraph, these questions have guided our budget projections. We're being liberal in how much revenue we will be short in fiscal year 21, meaning we're thinking about $1 million short in 21. If things get back to normal sooner rather than later, we can always amend our budget and then make some positive changes. For example, if we are projecting $1 million deficit in fiscal year 21, we get halfway through our budget and our sales tax revenues are rebounding better than what we thought. In essence, that could free up some of our stopgap money, which I'll get into in a minute and what that means. So due to the highly volatile situation we're in, we recommend a very conservative approach. Bad news for us would be we're looking at $1 million deficit and then it ends up being $2 million. That's the type of stuff that, and we're not looking, 1 million is not worst case scenario. 1 million is a number that we feel could be pretty realistic. And that is that's more or less assuming that the economy is going to sputter for the next 12 months, starting in July. That is not expecting a 80% rebound or a 90% rebound. That's probably more of a 60 or 70% rebound as far as the economy is concerned.
Scott, tell
Yeah.
me what is the number of our 17% in our rainy day fund? What was the dollar amount there?
2.3 million.
2.3. Just tell me very quickly, when is that? I remember us wanting to have that in case the bond payment wasn't made, that we would have enough to make that bond payment.
Yeah.
Is this the year that is paid off, or because is that June that they're due for a payment? I can't remember. Is it this year, next year?
Yeah, so everybody's understanding what Diana's asking is, we hold the bond on the Atrium property. Right now, Atrium is making the bond payments. Atrium, in my estimation, will continue to make the bond payments because the value of the land now exceeds the cost of the bond. If they default on the bond payment, then we would have to pay it, but then we would get the land back. And unless development really takes a turn south, that could end up benefiting us in a way. But we've always made sure that we had enough to make a bond. The bond payments are about 1.5 million a year. They're broken up into two payments. There's a $500,000 payment in May and $1 million payment in November. And so we've always held that 2.3, making sure that if worst case scenario, we ended up with that property, that we had 1 year's worth of payments before we could sell it. So I don't think that's as dire as it used to be.
Nope.
But we'll talk a little bit about that 2.3 and what it means to us, and what the feelings are of the council of dipping into that. So our fiscal year, these are numbers today, and I just got to reiterate, these could go up or down as we get more information. So just don't think that this is the end all today. Just remember that because of the volatility of the situation, right now, this is our best guess as of today. So our projected deficit is $987,619. What we are suggesting to do is to take our capital money from last year, which is already in the bank. We have the cash. There was $900,000 of that. That $900,000 a month ago was going to do some cool stuff. We were going to buy a new ambulance. We were going to get some vehicles for other departments. We were going to fix some tennis courts. We were going to get a large truck for Public Works. We had all these things in play for that money. What we're suggesting is that we take that $900,000 and we plug it into our operations for our next fiscal year to plug that gap, that $987,000 gap. Now that $900,000 doesn't cover the full amount that we're projecting today. So we would use $87,000 of that 2.3 million of fund balance to balance the budget. So that's our suggestion. We have a list of all the requests from the department heads. We can share that with you to show that these are the things that could have been used for the money. And so let's say we don't do that route. Let's say that we took $500,000 of that and put it into capital and only used $400,000 for operations. Well, that means we have another, if we took $500,000 of that and put it into capital, we have another $487,000 now we need to balance the budget. So either that would have to come out of fund balance, or that would have to come out of a reduction in services and operations, which could affect our people and the employment of our people. So that's why we're recommending that we just forego any capital this year. We use this as the stopgap. If we're still in a bad way in fiscal year 22, we'll be having a different discussion, but we feel that this is enough to get us through fiscal year 21. So is there questions about the use of that capital money?
Could we
No.
could we reduce what we're doing at the pickleball court? Because do we already have those funds from the CARE tax and just reduce what we're doing and do the minimum with the course instead of doing some of the other things that we had planned?
Well, let me keep going then, because I answer that question as we go. There are a couple items that we do need to fund for this year. We have entered into the Communities That Care. We have a commitment there of $10,000. And Denise, let me pull this up. Give me just a sec. Okay, can you see that?
Yeah.
This is our typical one pager. And so on the left is our deficit of as far as our reduction in revenue of just about 1.1 million, which is reducing sales tax $750,000, reducing building and planning permits at 186, and other fines, and I mean, just kind of our others, we wrapped into one line at 156,000. And we do have a grant reimbursement of 5,000 coming our way. And then we also had the dispatch savings, which this is really going to be helpful. Now, our savings is 165,000, but we represented 145 because we were going to use 20 of that to hire a part-time admin person in our police department. So that's a net gain of 145,000 there, which shows you our deficit on the reduction of revenues plus the dispatch savings at 923,000. But then we have some expenses that we're going to put into the budget this year that Communities That Care were contractually obligated. Our part-time police admin is a position we can talk about as we get a little bit closer, but the idea is we have additional phone calls coming in because we no longer have a full-time dispatch. And then we're waiting on our property liability insurance number. We have a placeholder of a 10% increase at $25,000. If that comes in less, then that number goes down. If that comes in more, then that number will go up.
Hey, Scott.
We also have our employee recognition program that we implemented. That cost is $8,800. We'd really like to keep that in there because I think our employees are going to need that come next January and February. And so we'd like to keep that in the budget. So when you add those things up on top of our revenue reductions, that's where we get the 987,619, which corroborates back to this number here, 987,619. So the plug in the 900,000 of capital and the use of this. So let me keep going down the action items and then we can talk a little bit about care tax. Our goal in 2011 is preserving jobs. We're not going to have money to do a wage increase. Really, what we're going to try to do is keep everybody employed. And so it is the fundamental change that's happened. The mindset switch in 3 weeks is really hard sometimes to get our minds around because we were going economy full bore to economy almost stopped. This just has never happened before, at least in any of our lifetimes. This is just as we haven't had this switch in the matter of 3 weeks. And so our mindset is changing now of preservation, saving cash, and really doing those things as opposed to, all the cool things that we were going to be able to do because the money was there. So we have, okay, this was a huge thing for us in the positive. We got our renewal for our health and dental and it was at 0%.
Wow.
So we were anticipating 10%, which was going to be an additional $200,000 cost, but it came in at 0. So we didn't have an increase in our renewal. So what that does is that saves the employees to have to pay any more additional than what they're already paying for their health and dental. But it also saves this bottom line number. If we didn't save that 200,000, this number would be 1.18 million. So that was a huge thing in our favor. When we found out that number, I asked them to send the paperwork the next day so that we could sign it and have it locked in. So it is signed and locked in. Wasn't going to wait for the coronavirus to give these guys a second crack at the apple. We are recommending that we postpone the pickleball park for this year. The reason being is that project right now is about 70% funded. We were going to rely on future park impact fees and also care tax revenues to be able to get phase one of that done. And because those are an unknown to us, and because our care tax is going to see a pretty substantial reduction, our recommendation is that we postpone that for this year. We just don't have enough money to get the pickleball courts and the parking in there. We are also going to be recommending no utility rate increases on July 1. Now, if our economy revs right back up, then we might want to revisit that mid-year, because that still does affect projects and things that we need to get done. But our sense is, as staff, and I'm assuming you feel the same way, if our residents are struggling financially, it's going to be a hard deal for us to turn around and add another $5 onto their utility bill. So that's how we're seeing that. The care tax, pre-COVID projection for fiscal year 20 was $375,000. What we're looking at now is for fiscal year 20, we think we're going to settle in at 285, which is about $90,000 less. And our projected for fiscal year 21 is 285. And so if you add those two up, there's about $180,000 in revenue that if our economy would have stayed strong, we would have realized that now we know for sure, pretty much for sure in 2020, we're not going to get. In 2021, if sales tax rebounds decently, then we'll see more than a 285. But if you remember, we front-loaded Discovery Park and Downtown Park, and we were going to use our fiscal year 21 numbers, our care tax revenue, to finish paying that off. But because we reduced it by $90,000, we're going to be about $90,000 short at the end of next fiscal year to finish paying off Discovery Park and Downtown Park. So all that's done is just expanded the timeline when we could pay those things off. Now that's unfortunate, but that's not, I mean, in some ways we're just hitting a pause button for a year. We're hitting a pause button on projects. We're on certain projects that aren't fully funded or funded at all, that we were hoping on future revenues. But I feel like, relatively speaking, that $900,000 of our capital is going to save our bacon for fiscal year 21. It is really nice that we had that money available. If that money would not have been available, we would have to do something more drastic. So in a general sense, for fiscal year 20 and 21, today, I'll say as of today, I feel like we're in decent shape. Not ideal. There is going to be some sacrifice, particularly on projects, but I feel like we can weather this storm without having to dump too much into our fund balance. So that's all I have for budget. Is there questions or things that you want us to look at in preparation for April 14th?
Anybody got any questions? Looks like we're pretty good, Scott. Thank you.
Okay, obviously a lot to absorb in a 45-minute time frame. So as you think through these things and you have follow-up questions, give me a call, give Denise a call, send me an email. We can talk through these things, and then we'll bring this all back on the 14th. I don't know if we'll have much more information in the next 2 weeks than what we know today. But part of it will be how well we're doing with the virus. And if we're starting to see the downhill side of the virus here in 2 weeks would be an excellent sign, which would make us feel a little more comfortable. If we still haven't reached our peak by April 14th, which most projections are we won't hit our peak until after April 14th. But if for some reason we feel like we're on the downhill side, we can maybe breathe a little easier that we're going to recover sooner rather than later. But again, as you see, we get health information updates every day, and those are really what's driving how quickly we're going to get back.
Hey, Scott, can I just have can you email us this current budget situation?
Oh, yeah.
331?
I'll email all this information that I've shown you here so you guys can absorb that and the information that Denise has provided as well.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Mayor, if we can give Lindsay 10 minutes here real
Okay.
quick to go over the emergency management.
let's do that. Lindsay, can we see your shining face? You with us?
I'm here. Hold on. Can you see me?
Yep, we see you.
Hello.
Okay, would
Thanks for having me.
would you give us a briefing on our emergency management update here?
Yeah, I definitely think you guys are following it really well, which is really good. But as far as the biggest emergency management stuff going on in my world is the COVID-19. Just so you all know, I do work really well with the Utah County Sheriff's Department, which has the emergency management program there, who works with all the EMs in the city. I'm also working with the Utah County Health Department. And with that comes a liaison from the state. So we have meetings at least once a week on their phone calls, of course. And we go over different things that are going on with the state, with the county, and citywide. So just some of the information that you guys already know, obviously, President Trump has signed the stimulus for the $2 trillion. And then he also announced that they are extending the social distancing and quarantine until April 30th to see if we can finally see if we are flattening the curve. So I think that's really good on his point. We can't really see the numbers until we finally see them come down. I'll show you guys, actually, let me pull them up really quick.
So I took my stuff off the screen. I think you can do yours now, Lindsay.
Okay, I am pulling it up right now. Okay, so let's pull this up. So the number of people being tested can be a lot higher than the numbers of actually confirmed. So when we look at, let me go down to the states. Okay, so here's the states. We have a positive confirmed case of COVID-19 at 887, but 18,500 people have been tested to date in the state. That does not mean that all of the rest of them are negative. We're still waiting for the positive results if there is some. So as far as the state goes, I don't get a number of which ones we're still waiting for. I do get them, however, for Utah County, and Utah County sends me a report on numbers daily as far as just Monday through Friday. So I have yesterday's because I don't get the report until later this evening. So let's just kind of go over these numbers. Let's start with, obviously, this is a current number. The United States has 180,000 people that are confirmed with the virus, and we have 3,600 deaths. So it's rising, as we can see. We can test in the United States a lot faster than we can in some of the other ones. So that's why our number is higher than other places, is because we do have the ability to test and get our numbers back a little bit faster. For the state, we just went over those. There are 73 that are hospitalized, and we have 5 confirmed deaths, and that was of today. Just to kind of give you an idea of where we're at and how important it is for like kids to be as precautious as adults. The percentages, and this is a Utah percentage, so 15% or less are 24-year-olds. So, the numbers are still there. They're not contracting them as much as the middle ages, which is between 25 and 40 at 42%. And then between 45 and 64 is 32%, and 13% is 65 and above. So it's good that 13% is small in that age. That means that, the older generation is staying away, which is so important. I know that their immune systems can be a little bit more compromised than some of the younger generations. But we just need to be aware that these numbers, they're not lying, and we just have to be so careful. So as far as Pleasant Grove, the city and the state, we have definitely take good precautions in shutting things down, like the playgrounds in certain areas. We'll go over Utah counties. These are from yesterday's. The positive is 57, although I do have a positive of 70 now. The rest of the numbers I do not have. There's only 1 non-resident. We don't have any deaths in Utah County. So this is where that number comes in. So we have tested in Utah County 1,391. they have negative results of 336. So we're still waiting for like 1,000 tests to come back to see if they're positive or negative. So
Hey,
that's why when we're,
Hey, Linz,
Huh?
can you just one more time on those? So 1391 tests in Utah County.
13,391. Mm-hmm.
How many have come back negative?
336.
Lindsay,
no-
Lindsay, would it be possible to get a copy of this also?
Absolutely. I'll just email you. I can email you these stats to you guys.
Hey, Lindsay, does Utah County ever break it down per cities?
No, so we just had a big conversation about this today. I had a meeting right before this one with them, and Lehigh's mayor was actually wondering the same question. So as far as breaking down city to city, Utah Health County cannot do that for us. They're not even going to do this. I know that the fire departments and EMS, they are in communications with hospitals that can confirm if they have transported someone. But number-wise, we can't give you a number per city. If it changes, I will definitely keep you updated.
And Lindsay, how many cases do we have in Utah County? I know I can pull that up, but.
Oh, okay. So from yesterday, there was 57, but I know because I confirmed it earlier that there are 70. I just don't have the other confirmed numbers. So 70, well, technically it's 71 because one is a non-resident, but
Okay.
if that makes sense.
And on yesterday on our call with the mayors and the county health department and the county commissioners, the county was saying that they're projecting just over 500 cases in Utah County. Or it would be our
Right.
run out. Is that right, Lindsay? Is that what they're still saying?
I can definitely see that. We didn't talk too much about the numbers besides what I have right here, but yeah.
Okay.
Can I just add, if you want to track this closely, every day at 1 o'clock, there is a press conference held by the state health department. It's on KSL.com. And it's probably in other places too. But they review the statewide numbers and then they also release the countywide numbers. And so
Yeah,
you can get those kind of up to date, and you can find them online right now. If you went to KSL.com and clicked on the COVID-19 or even the coronavirus.utah.gov, that has a ton of information on there too, a ton of graphs, things like that, and it has all this info. If you want to, and they update that every day.
Yeah, they do. I'll send this to you, but I can also, if you want me to send it to you daily, I can. Just let me know what's most convenient for everyone. I don't want to bombard your emails. I'm sure you're getting a lot as it is. Okay, so, and then they did not give me a number of hospitalizations in Utah County, so I do not know if there is any. However, I did just hear that the sheriff announced that there is 2 deputies with it. So again,
Wow.
we just, and I know that they're really careful, but it can happen to anyone. And we need to be careful because it is such a strong virus. Oh. Okay, let's see. So another thing that I have been talking with the county about a lot is PPE. That's personal protective equipment. So we need that for fire and police as we go out and, still protect the city and go on call. We're definitely in a shortage. And this is something that I'm working with heavily with the county and the health department. I was able to snag a bunch of PPE a couple weeks ago because I was on the ball with talking with my resources and with the health department. So I was able to get some here, which is pretty awesome. However, depending on how strong it attacks us here, we may need more. So I am currently working on getting more. The resource we got to work with wants minimum of 5,000 to 10,000 orders for the N95 masks. And clearly, the city can't come up with 5,000. I don't even know if we'll need that many. So I'm trying to see and that was at $4.50 to order that many. We were very curious on why the price was so much higher, why they're trying to gouge us. It's actually not the suppliers, it's China. They are just short of work and they have increased their weight, they've increased it, so we are now having to pay this higher amount. We're just trying to get whatever we can in because we don't know how long this is gonna last. So I am definitely working with the county and our fire departments and our suppliers to try to get what we can in to help protect us as much as possible. I know for the police department, we ordered some 3D molded masks that we can actually take an N95 and cut them and put them and insert them, where you could get about 3 uses out of one mask. So that's pretty good. That'll help keep our supply down. Another thing, okay, so if we go now into the city, I was just able to get that PPE in a couple weeks ago. We're doing like a fantastic job on tracking everything and making sure we know what kind of money we have lost and keeping track of all the funds so we can report back to the city, or when we get money in, we need to make sure that we track and have everything. So the city has done such an amazing job. It was 2 weeks ago that every department member needed to come up with a 90-day plan. And we did that, and we were definitely ahead of the game. Pleasant Grove is doing so good with controlling a pandemic that has never happened to our nation. We've never exercised this, so this is all new to all of us. And as far as our city goes, we have 100% stepped it up, and we are doing such a good job. And other EMs are, just kind of like, what are you doing? And I'm like, oh, we have a 90-day plan for every department, and we're already following it. And they're like, really? And so they were impressed that we have already come so far in certain areas. So that's
awesome.
That's really cool, I think. So good job, Pleasant Grove. That's pretty much it. Do you have any more questions on the COVID stuff?
Lindsay, is it possible to get these weekly updates from you? Can you send those out to Scott and staff and the council, or even more often than weekly, just as soon as you're getting them, so we can see the stats, and then any recommendations that you have that we can be doing as a city? What if, I know the stakes and wards and the LDS and even other churches as well are just kind of banding together to see how they can help each other. If someone contacts you, or should we just send them to you for emergency management? If they have questions, they're trying to get that in place. Are you the best resource for that?
Yes, absolutely. You can send them to me. As far as the pandemic goes, it's still such a new thing on with volunteers. I know because I can talk a little bit about CERT in a second, but with our CERT, it's a volunteer where their basic response, and so they're a lot more hands-on. And so with everyone not being able to be hands-on, this is definitely something I plan to bring up in emergency management. We have an emergency management meeting countywide once a month. We're just doing them once a week now, but it's something to bring up to see if maybe we can utilize them in a different way and how we could do it. But if people want to contact me and throw some ideas at, I'm definitely happy to listen. I'm definitely happy to set up a plan and see how we can kind of arrange that. But yeah, go ahead and give them my email. You can give them my phone number. I'm more than happy to talk to them.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Okay.
And Lindsay, I've loved this. Thank you so much. I am just very surprised that the 42% are between the ages of 25 and 44, because that's not what we've been hearing. I think it would be good if you just gave us these little snapshots, or if you just get some new information, just to put that up on our group me, or maybe Mike can, just our emergency group. That'll just be good for us.
Yeah, no problem.
That would be great.
The easier thing would probably be to do it via email.
Okay.
Opposed to using the company. And so if Lindsay's getting updates, she can send them to me and I'll send them out to everybody.
Okay, good idea.
And I'll also send out links from news sources and stuff. Like I said, this information's available in a lot of places, so. But as she sends the daily updates from the county, I'll just forward them all to you guys, so you can keep up to date with the latest and greatest.
Yeah. And the two first responders in the sheriff's department, I'm just worried about you guys all going out and then not to have the equipment that you need to protect yourselves.
Yeah, it can be scary. we have equipment right now, and we have policies in place where, like, as the fire department has their policies, and Chief Thomas can go in a little bit more on that. I know that our policies are, if there's anybody sick, our guys are staying outside. If for some reason that they do need to go inside, they have to have their N95 masks on, and I have created some grab kits that they're supposed to pick up with PPE in it, and so they're supposed to get fully gowned, gloved up, and they have stuff to go if they do have to go in and be protective. The biggest thing is that we don't want the virus sticking to their clothes, so they have gowns, they have gloves, they have their masks on, they have their goggles on, so they're being as protective as they can. It's scary because we don't know, but as far as the police side, we are trying to stay as far away as we can, but still give the best service and what we need to do. There are going to be times where they have to go in, and that's just what has to happen. But yeah, we have some plans in place that we're definitely taking precaution.
Lindsay, can you give us a quick update on what you were working on with CERT? Just with an understanding that CERT isn't built for a pandemic.
Absolutely.
And so it's, we're not going to send CERT members into people's homes that have this stuff.
No, of course not.
But how about an earthquake?
Yes, definitely. So
Go ahead.
we did have our earthquake. That was a 5.7 out of Magna. So over here, it was obviously quite a bit less. Just so you know, as soon as the earthquake happened, I know Dion was out. I'm sure Marty and his crew were out doing damage assessments. Those need to be done pretty fast. We have a timeline of April 22nd to get those in if we had any here. And I have let Scott know that if anybody calls in, we do need to go and do an assessment because we can turn in these for to the state for the damage assessments of getting money reimbursed back to us. We went around, I went around personally to the city and just drove around to see if I can see anything physically. I could not. I talked to Dion. I don't believe he found anything either. And I have talked to Scott since, and I believe we're still good. Have you heard anything back since?
No, I think all of our facilities were fine. I don't think we had any damage.
So we're pretty lucky. I think it's definitely a scare to have an emergency with an emergency. But we handled it really well. If it was definitely a bigger one and we had more damages, CERT is definitely going to come into play. We have it set up where our CERT is active, so we have liaisons and we have team captains and block captains, and what it does is it trickles down where we can set up, organization centers or volunteer centers, and then they can do triage. So some of the things that CERT does is basic skills of like fire safety, light search and rescue, medical needs triage, lifting, organization. So it's pretty minimal. A lot of people that sign up are a little bit older, so we do have to keep some of the things lighter so they're not getting injured. But I do have an online course that we've set up that I'm trying to get people to go to. They still need to sign up to come in to do the hands-on stuff. They were scheduled for April 16th. They are now postponed. When the quarantine is lifted, we will reschedule that, and my CERT liaison knows that we've been in touch. But we're definitely amping up in the CERT program, and it will be really active and hopefully a lot more exercises in the near future. Any more questions?
Any other questions for Lindsay?
Lindsay, really quick, how do people, is there information on our website about CERT so we can get them thinking about it and signing up now while we are in an emergency situation? And how do they sign up? And then is there like a game plan or a goal of when we're gonna have them trained by? Probably later this year because of what's going on. Because I know we've been talking about it, and like now just with, people might be more interested with everything going on with the earthquake and the virus, and now might be a good time to recruit. How do we get that information out to the public, or can we start recruiting now?
You can absolutely start recruiting now. I actually tried to get some information into the newsletter. I got it in the last month's newsletter. I tried to get into this one, but with everything going on, it kind of slipped my mind about putting it into the newsletter. It is on our webpage. It's kind of hard to find on our webpage. I need to make it more active, or maybe we can just make a link that says sign up for CERT here now that we are kind of in this, that we are in the pandemic and people are more interested in signing up and volunteering. So that's something I'll get on and make
because we can even put it on the homepage too.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, there's like an application or anything we can get out there. And then what's kind of like a goal that we could have? When you said like captains and things like that, is that different than CERT, or is that CERT?
Okay, so there's block captains, and there's a block captain system that the LDS Church has done and for years that they have set up through their organization, and that they have them and they're set up and they test them, and that works great. That is an LDS organization. It is something that I would like to utilize. My plan was to try to do a big communication drill, kind of like Linden does. We do need, because we have not done one here, we do need more time to plan it than when I expected to do it at the end of September this year. So that'll have to get pushed back. We do kind of have to watch the weather. So if we can kind of get things back to a little bit to normal, maybe we could do it October.
Okay.
So what the communication drill is, this is going to practice the block captain system. And we can also get my certs and my cert captains involved as well. So we have, if you're signed up for CERT and you're an active member of CERT, we have liaisons and team captains and block captains. And so it's like a tree. So my liaisons will call the captains, and then they'll call the people all underneath them. As far as the LDS block captains goes, they're supposed, from what I've been told, they have a block captain in every block. And so they make communications with everyone in their block, members or non-members. And that's why this city drill could work if we plan to do the block captain communications drill, is that we'll utilize the church, but we will make it a city drill. So whether you're LDS or non-LDS, this is a drill we'd like you to participate in, get to know your neighbors, communicate with them, let us know where you're at. But yeah, so that's a little bit of the difference. So if a CERT, so the CERTs are going to contact their CERTs. The block captains that the LDS have set up just contacts their immediate block. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I know how that works, Lindsay, and I think this is, I think we've run out of time, and this really doesn't pertain to what we've got going on.
No, it doesn't.
Right now, so we can follow this up and get that going again after we get this past us here. So anybody else got anything else for Lindsay right now?
Yeah, thank you, Lindsay.
Thanks,
Lindsay.
Doing a great job.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lindsay. If there's no other things there, I would like to call for a motion to adjourn from our work session. Do I have a motion?
Mayor, I'll make a motion to adjourn the work session.
We have a motion from Councilmember Williams. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Bronco. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're adjourned, and let's take a 5-minute break here and come back at 6:20. Let's do 6:20. We'll be back for our scheduled city council meeting. That's all right.
You guys did hear about the earthquakes in Idaho?
Yep.
Yeah, my daughter's texting me. She felt that.
Yeah, that's a big one. 6.4 is pretty good size.
North of Idaho Falls, and my daughter's 60 miles north of Rexburg, and they felt it.
That's pretty big. All right, we'll see you in about 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Where do we go eat?
Your refrigerator.